Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, best cocktail.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcast should have a theme song. Podcast should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
Hal, I mean no insult in saying this.
What?
I was reluctant to pick this episode because I know that only one of us ever drinks alcohol. So I didn't want to feel like I was having to carry the weight of an episode, one that you would not be able to participate in.
Mark, how long have we known each other? What year?
2003? 4?
Earlier.
Was it?
I think like 2001 or 2.
Was it 2002?
Whenever you came out here. I met you within like 2 weeks of you coming out.
Oh my gosh, that's right. At Avcollies.
Do you think there's a topic you could pick that I will not talk about for an hour?
No.
Regardless of whether I've ever had it or not?
No, I don't think that that's the case, Hal.
Then we're good.
We're good. And not only are we good, we are great.
Yes.
Because we have with us today, we are not cocktail experts. We have brought a cocktail expert with us.
She's rolling up her sleeves.
She is literally rolling up her sleeves right now. I mean, the bona fides. Here's the thing. We know you and we love you because you are our friend. We've been friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
You made beautiful music while we were on stage at the Thrilling Adventure Hour.
Yes.
You now own and run your own music school in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And yet today we have brought you on for one reason and one reason only, because you are the best mixologist we know. Ladies and gentlemen, Becky Ward, how are you, friend?
I am so happy to be here. Let's talk about booze.
Yeah, let's do it.
You gave like all the music bona fides,
Yeah.
but also she's like a world-class chef.
Yeah.
You did catering work. Like when I say catering, I don't mean like you showed up in a white shirt and bus tables. Like you created menus. Like we would go over just to hang out for like a party or whatever.
Yeah, and we'd be handed
world-class
paper with things written on them of what we were about to eat.
It's just like, oh, I made this.
I forgot about that one. That was fun.
Like crazy, like just these, like she knows food, she knows drink.
Yeah.
And that is why she is here now. We can have her on another time to talk music.
Yeah.
Hey, anytime.
Speaking of delightful food and drink, what do we have in front of us currently, Becky?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about best cocktail,
Yeah.
Mark, I'm going to say I didn't feel like I needed to remind you what some of the contenders for best cocktail taste
I've had an old fashioned or two.
I feel like we've both, been
Sure.
around that block at least a couple of times. So I thought it might be fun to invent new cocktails for this. So, I don't know. I brought 2. We're starting with what I'm calling the Plume.
Yes.
Named for producer Ken Plume.
That's right. Shout out to Ken Plume. This is a gin-based cocktail. It's both Grey Whale gin and Tomcat barrel-aged gin. It has some Lilet Blanc. It has a French aperitif called Solaires, which is super herbaceous and lovely with gin. Has some muddled mint and a little fresh lime juice.
People of the world, did you think that we were going to bring a lightweight in?
Yeah.
No,
By the way, I'm shocked because I would have thought a Ken Plume would be like orange juice in a glass and then you throw a bunch of Darth Vader figures in and mix them around until some of the plastic gets loose.
Yeah, if you don't swallow one of those lightsabers that slides up and down.
There's a Pez dispenser that I can
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
All right, let's take our first sip. Annie is here as well. Join us. Would you like to say anything, Annie?
Hi.
Hi from
Hi.
Annie.
Annie says hi.
Annie was like, "Oh, Becky's coming over. I will be home in time for you guys' recording."
That's right.
Second cocktail's coming.
Exciting. This is the Plume.
This is I would say it resembles as someone who does not drink. Sort of like it has like the look of like a grapefruit juice, or it has the look of like a white wine, just in terms of it is a clear,
Oh, that is so good.
grapefruitish.
Yeah, there's almost like a grapefruity.
Yeah, I think you get a little of the. I don't want to call it.
There's like that herbiness.
The herby bitterness that I think you get from grapefruit. I think that comes from both the Solaires and the mint. And then I I said, I made them earlier today because I wanted all the flavors kind of just mellow together a little bit.
That's what I was going to say. Becky, where did you start? Like, as someone who loves mixology, you're obviously adept at coming up with your own cocktails. Where did that come from? Like that interest, not only in trying different kinds, but then also going, well, what can I create?
I mean, I think it starts with cooking for me. Mm-hmm. Cooking is just the hobby I use to satisfy my very type A personality. Yep. When I can't sleep at night, I just plan menus in my head because I feel like I'm accomplishing something and that lets my brain stop, I guess, is how I do that.
It's so the opposite of what you hear when someone's like, well, I have a creative outlet. You're like, my career is a creative outlet. I need to make lists.
Yeah, I need to organize things in my head and think about, I mean, my favorite thing to do is throw cocktail parties. Like it is
You're great at it.
I during the pandemic, my husband, like, who is a woodworker in addition to being Jonathan Dinerstein, composer, podcaster, pianist and all those things. He's also a really talented woodworker. And he made me this beautiful, like mid-century modern tray so that when we were isolating and could only see like one friend at a time on our back deck, I could hand them cocktails on this tray and maintain my outdoor 6 feet of distance because he said, this is a physical need for you to have this outlet to be able to entertain and make things for people. So it is my great joy in life to entertain and make food that works with cool things. And cocktails are just a really natural evolution of that for me. They become a great way to play with flavors and complexity and balance and finding things that balance bitter and tart and sweet and age. And I like all of those things in cooking and they make sense in cocktails.
I love age as one of those things on the list that, like, even talking about making this cocktail that you're like, I made it earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Like the age of it is just a few hours. But in those few hours, the flavors get to...
It changes. It's a different cocktail now than it was a few hours ago. Mm-hmm. And part of that was convenience because I thought maybe if I just started mixing a whole bunch of stuff in your kitchen, you'd be annoyed with me.
Nah, come on. Never.
But I also sort of played with things where I knew I wanted that to marry a little bit.
It's so good. Well, I tell you, whatever you did with the bitter element of this, it works beautifully because sometimes I like bitters and I like bitter things.
Oh, that's
but sometimes bitter is just bitter.
Cardamom bitters. That's what's in there.
Bitters.
I'm sorry. I completely forgot. I
sure you forgot. Yeah.
I did.
There's one you like, I forgot this ingredient.
No,
so, but it's so mellow and everything fits so well together. Do you have a favorite cocktail and food pairing? Either something that you've come up with or a classic like...
I mean, my classic cocktail pairing is a Manhattan and a good steak. Like that for me, you can't beat that. Give me someone who knows how to make a perfect Manhattan. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. An ideal Manhattan, because a perfect Manhattan is a specific thing. But
what does perfect mean in the drink sense?
Perfect means half sweet vermouth, half dry vermouth in the Manhattan. So an ideal Manhattan and a really good steak. Yeah. And that's nice. Then we're in business, right?
Yeah.
That's good. This is delightful. Well, we've obviously brought the right person on to talk about.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Long overdue.
I have listened to this show from the beginning and I love it when I spend time in the car and I get to have my pals in the car with me and it makes me very happy. Aww. And you can't hear me when I yell at you. So
sometimes we do. We get the text.
You get the text.
us.
Or when we do see you, you were like, what were you talking about? Particularly the ingredient episode seemed to bother you.
Yeah, buddy. I know.
Look, I keep getting grief. Annie bothered.
What a flashpoint.
I am on your side with food almost all the time, and that was just that was you lost your mind.
Look, it happens sometimes. Sometimes you're real broke, and you just have all you have in your kitchen is brown sugar and a spoon.
We've all been there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I will say now that Annie is here, to her great credit, Ken told me on the way over, he's like, look in his fridge. See if the fridge has food.
There's food in it. Yeah.
There is an actual pantry with food in it.
Yeah, to the ceiling.
Options. Yeah, it's
I need a stepladder to get to the pasta now.
I'm so happy. I would say I'm proud of you, but you had nothing to do with it. I'm very happy that now you're in a loving relationship that involves you having food available that isn't like, I'm going to walk to 7-Eleven.
There's a 7-Eleven on the corner.
Let me get one
Annie
of those.
literally just rolled her eyes.
Yeah. Let me get a banana if you're getting bananas from a 7-Eleven, there's just, you're courting disaster.
Bananas from a 7-Eleven sounds like a Tom Waits song. About a sad person.
It is, yeah. He just blows into a bud vase for 3 hours. That's what that track is.
All right, let's talk about cocktails.
Yeah.
So we've all done a little bit of research on this. Becky, you sent some research along that I loved the way that they broke it down into the 6 main types of cocktail. And I think this is really smart because all you're really doing is swapping out the spirit to create different types of drinks. It's almost like there are only, 6 different stories and it's just the details that are different. Or there's only 8 different magic tricks. You're just changing the details.
And you can riff on them.
Yeah. And all of these different drinks, like a Manhattan is not on this list, but a Manhattan very much is on this list because it is a martini. Exactly. It's just a martini with different elements in it.
You mentioned a magic trick. I'd like to pull one off now. You give me one of the categories, I will give you the other 5. And I've never had a drink in my life, and I have done 0 research on this. Go ahead.
Give you one of the categories?
Just one of the categories. I'll give you the rest.
And you will give me the rest.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned. New-fashioned. Back to the Future. Back to the Future Part 2. Back to the Future Part 3. Scanners.
You know what? That's really impressive. Those are all just the subcategories of old-fashioned. Do you know the subcategories of flip?
Yes. Wilson. Back.
Wilson and back are the 2 types of flip.
Yes.
You can think of.
It's good.
Not flop? No. Flip-flops don't count?
No. Those are for your feet.
Yeah, Florida gave me pink eye.
Yeah.
So those 6 are, as listed, an old-fashioned, a daiquiri, a martini, a whiskey highball, a flip, and a sidecar. Meaning, and when you think of cocktails, like a Cuba Libre is a variation on a whiskey highball, because a whiskey highball is a spirit, soda, and a wedge of citrus. A Cuba Libre is rum, Coke, and a lime wedge.
Yeah.
A Greyhound. What's a Greyhound? Is grape juice and
a grapefruit juice.
Grapefruit juice
and vodka.
Well, it's just grape juice, grapefruit juice, vodka. Got it. We'll put all these great recipes up along with the Plume and the other show specific cocktail. There are 2. We're going to bring one to you after the break.
This is all first half stuff. So let's talk about these different categories. Is there one that you want to start with? The old fashioned, the daiquiri, the martini, the whiskey highball, the flip, and the sidecar?
Well, I mean, I feel like we leave the heavy hitters. We can get some of these out of the way.
So let's talk about flips.
Yeah, let's talk about flips.
Flips are fun. Flips are when you mix
an egg white.
An egg white.
An egg white. Oh my gosh, if I get this wrong, please correct me, because this is where my bona fides are going to start to fail me. But you add an egg white to it to add sort of this cool viscosity. Sounds like the wrong word because that doesn't sound appetizing, but like this cool mouthfeel to it. Right. I mean, it's a protein structure, right? That's what an egg white is. So when you add that and you shake that with a cocktail, you add body to the cocktail.
You just take a egg white and you just put it right in there with some drink.
Right on in there.
You decide you're going to have it.
Have you ever had a lemon meringue pie?
Where you whip it with, then you go and you take a torch and you burn the top.
Yeah, on the top.
Don't throw this into my beloved food. You are mixing. The only time I see an egg white being consumed in a beverage is in Rocky when he takes a glass of
That's a whole egg.
And eats. Yeah. Why can't we put, there's gotta be. Becky.
Yes.
Settle something for us right now.
Okay.
So we're in a bitter fight.
I'm not even talking to him until this is settled.
Are there at least one cocktails? Are there at least one of them? Or 2? 2 cocktails. I know I was grammatically incorrect. Leave me alone. But that has an egg yolk in it? Is there? Well,
I was going to say, I mean, the cocktail is such we're talking about something that goes back centuries, if not arguably millennia.
Yeah.
So now the modern flip uses an egg white. They have used whole eggs. They've used cream to get the same effect. I mean,
eggnog is a flip.
Sure. Yeah.
Proper eggnog is a flip.
Exactly,
a white Russian is a flip.
A white Russian is a flip.
Anything that's got a cream base or a
fat base to it, or that protein structure from it. Yeah. I mean, now we tend to use egg whites. But there's, oh God.
You order that at the bar.
You know what?
Gross to put in there?
Yeah.
I turned my nose up at that, but do you know what luging is in a...
No, what is luging?
You get on the thing and you go very fast.
It's the one-person tube thing in the almost said Space Olympics, but it's not space. Winter Olympics.
So I've never done this. I've seen it done, but I've never done this. It's where you are in the restaurant and you order the bone marrow. And then once you've scraped the bone marrow out of the bone and put it on your toast points and enjoyed your bone marrow, you order a shot of something lovely, and then you put the end of the bone in your mouth and they pour the shot.
If I'm drinking a shot through a bone, I am the villain in whatever movie is happening.
Yeah. Which fraternity does that?
Skull and Bones.
Drink from the bone.
Only the finest, establishment that you can do it in.
I mean,
I know. I've never done it myself.
Is this the thing that bougie people do?
Yeah.
Really?
I know, it's gross.
Bone shots.
Bone shots. Luging.
The only bone shots I want are Boniva when I'm getting a little older and I start to lose calcium.
Right, yeah. Sure. I mean, and I like bone marrow, but
I've had bone marrow. I enjoy it, but that doesn't feel like a mix. Like, look, I get it. I like a Manhattan and a steak. Right. I'm not going to pour the Manhattan on the steak.
I mean, I'm also a fully fledged adult. I'm not doing shots anymore either. Yes, I mean, I left my 20s behind a long time ago, and good God, but this is the equivalent of doing a shot so that you get the end of the very expensive bone marrow you just ordered and get them at the same time.
It's kind of like a body shot for ghost hunters. Because, you don't know who's like, they tell you.
You gotta go, yeah. You hear that and you're like, did you just hear that? Did you hear somebody go,
I just felt the temperature drop 3 degrees.
Wait, I swear I just heard a ghost go, so good, so good, so good. All right, so look, flips are great. I don't know that the flip is going to win.
The flip's going to win.
It's a meal and a drink. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's...
But I do love a good eggnog.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's got to play... It's one of those things I can have about half of one of, and then I'm going, oh, if I keep drinking this is going to be unpleasant.
For me, it's not about the alcohol at that point.
No, it's the sugar.
The unpleasantness is the sugar and the cream.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like... It's like if I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I did sit down last night and drink 8 fluid ounces of heavy cream.
And some eggs.
And some raw egg in there.
That's breakfast if you had coffee.
Seems like a terrible idea.
Is Irish coffee a flip?
Yes, it would. Well, it's a hot drink.
Bailey's Irish cream,
and I think we can it's Irish whiskey and sweetened whipped cream and coffee.
And Welch's grape.
And Welch's grape juice. They're in everything.
I'm going to get into something.
Yeah.
You know what? I wonder, because there is Welch's grape juice and there is peanut butter vodka. I mean, peanut butter whiskey.
Cocktails, Becky, if you had to guess a percentage, do you think were created on a dare? Because peanut butter vodka is the equivalent of everybody in the lunchroom taking all their food, putting it on a tray, and giving the one kid, and everybody knows the one kid, a quarter to try it, and they would have done it for free.
Yeah.
There's inflation, dude. It's not a quarter anymore.
30 cents. But not a dime more.
And then the kid starts negotiating. Yeah. You ever do that where you negotiate with that kid and they're like, that's not gross enough. That's not gross enough. Or you're like, for what you're asking, this isn't gross enough. You're asking $1? Nah, man. Go get ice cream and Worcestershire.
What is the best you can do with this?
Yeah.
What is the best you can give me on it?
What's it going to take to get you in this glass?
If we finance, are we going to get a better deal? What's the invoice?
Popsicles are for closers.
Look, yeah. ABP, always be popsicling. All right, so the flip's not going to win, but a White Russian is delicious. Eggnog is delicious. Sure. Let's talk next about another one that you don't think will win out of this list, because old-fashioned daiquiri, martini, highball, and sidecar.
What's a sidecar?
Sidecar is interesting because there's one very famous version of a sidecar.
The sidecar I thought sidecar was a drink.
Sidecar is a drink, yes. A sidecar, we can jump right into sidecar.
Sure.
A sidecar is a cocktail traditionally made with cognac, orange liqueur, and lemon juice. That's a classic sidecar. Okay. But change a couple of those ingredients around. Do you know what cocktail you get if you just change a couple of those ingredients around while still fitting technically into the sidecar category?
Becky won on Jeopardy.
What?
Like he was on Jeopardy.
No, my husband was on Jeopardy.
Did you weren't on Jeopardy?
I do. No, I was on a different game show.
You were on a different game show.
I was on
but you could wait. We used to go to
You
O'Brien's.
could easily. You are an O'Brien's.
Yeah, you were an O'Brien's quiz.
For those who don't know, O'Brien's is the official trivia.
It was.
Still is.
I mean, but that building is like.
Oh, but they moved to a different O'Brien's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
O'Brien's with an A.
No, yeah, they went from the famous Los Angeles O'Brien's pub quiz went from O'Brien's in Venice to O'Brien's in Santa Monica.
Are they the same company or they're different?
No, totally different bars. They're just totally different bars that are called O'Brien's. So O'Brien's Pub Quiz never had to change its name.
Yeah.
I'm going tomorrow night. We gave quiz last week. It was our turn.
Go?
Really well. Good. Really well. I was very happy with our quiz.
Oh yeah,
it was a good one.
You guys were going to be doing it.
Yeah. Bunch of Jeopardy champions trying to outsmart one another.
Lots of Jeopardy.
All right,
champions.
well, smarty pants.
And this is awful because I do not know the answer, or I don't know yet.
We can get there.
Caboose.
Knowing that it's not just vehicles.
Well, one's a sidecar. Oh, sorry. The motorcycle. Sidecar's on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
That was
the motorcycle that Indy was on, not the sidecar that his dad
was bed knobs and broomsticks, because there's a sidecar in that.
Okay, if you're think about these ingredients and you are swapping out these elements: cognac, orange liqueur, and lemon juice. Just swap out a couple of those. Swap out the cognac for tequila. Swap out the lemon juice for lime juice.
Sure. Of course.
Salt the rim.
Yeah, that's.
Margarita?
You've got a margarita.
You've got a margarita.
Yeah.
And the margarita. I mean.
That's a good cocktail.
Is that a sidecar?
A margarita is technically a sidecar.
It is under the category of sidecar. That's absolutely true. And they're ubiquitous. A well-made margarita.
Yeah.
Ooh, a margarita made with mezcal.
I do like a mezcal margarita.
We can talk about mezcal. I think mezcal
tastes like gasoline on its own.
Oh, didn't I just make you a mezcal cocktail?
That's different. You made a cocktail. Yeah. I could give you anything in a chop basket. I should give you fish eyes in a chop basket, and you would give us something gourmet. Mezcal on its own tastes like gasoline.
Drink it through a bone.
I generally don't drink mezcal straight, but I have done mezcal on ice with like a few big pieces of orange zest. Just you sort of let sit in it and you express that orange zest in there
as an ingredient.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm a scotch drinker, so mezcal is tequila scotch.
Yeah, it really is.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's the Lafroig of tequila.
Yeah, and how do you feel about smoky scotches?
I like smoky scotches.
And I think you're going to like the next cocktail.
Oh, this is exciting. Well, let's talk about margaritas. I think a margarita might be on the finalists list.
I think it's hard for it not to be.
As cocktails go, because there's a difference between, I think, just a mixed drink, which a whiskey highball technically would be, if you had a citrus garnish on the side. But just like a booze in a mixer isn't necessarily a cocktail. A cocktail is something that's got some craft.
Right? Yeah.
It's got some thought behind it. It pairs well with something. In this case, a margarita pairs well with fried beach food and Mexican food and like spicy stuff. But yeah, I think that in that sense, it's gotta be one of the ones that we take through to the finals.
I think cultural significance, ubiquity, it's just a margarita is tough not to take to the finals.
There's a whole city.
What you mean?
Margarita.
Yeah. True. It's weird. Like there are a lot of cocktails that feel very, like you mentioned ubiquity. I would almost say it's accessibility. Like another way to say that. Like it doesn't feel super fancy. I don't feel like I have to be sitting on a tartan print chair.
Yeah.
Something with elbow patches in a club that I have no business being in that costs money to get into. Like a margarita is a fun time drink.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm sure there are classy versions of it. You can get it almost anywhere.
Cadillac margarita.
Yeah. But even that, there's just, it's like a party drink.
Well, it gets to the accessibility question.
It is a cocktail.
The accessibility question from our beer versus wine episode is a margarita is a cocktail that anyone can enjoy. It's something that you can have different flavors. Don Cuco down the street, my favorite Mexican restaurant in Burbank, you can get a strawberry margarita, a mango margarita. Right. They have all different kinds of flavors. If that's your thing, I'm not into the super fruit additive versions of margaritas. Simply because a margarita already has enough sugar to give me a hangover.
Exactly.
It's a sweet drink. It's the addition. It's triple sec, right? Or is it?
Well, Cointreau.
Triple sec and Cointreau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
is it an either or? Is it triple sec or Cointreau?
It's sort of like a Kleenex versus generic tissue.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah. Triple sec.
Triple sec is a Cointreau. I'm forgetting exactly how this went down.
Is it Cadillac with Grand Marnier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which we called grandma back in the day.
Yeah.
Past the grandma.
And sometimes an extra floated tequila on top on
That
a
is
Cadillac.
too fancy.
I mean,
it's a Cadillac.
It's just
sure.
wrong.
You're not going to. Yeah. What am I going to drive? The Ford Festiva
exactly.
margarita? No. I want a Cadillac margarita.
So the margarita is a finalist.
Margarita's a finalist.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it has to go to the final. I think we already eliminated the flip, but if we're going to take one out of each category to the finals,
we could take one.
Though that gets harder with other categories.
But I don't think there's a flip that.
No,
I don't think there's a flip.
Yeah, there's no flip or sidecar that could beat a margarita. I'll tell you what. So we've gone through 3 of the categories. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we're going to introduce the second custom We Got This cocktail. Which Becky came to us today. Like, it's not her job.
We're at my home, and she is hosting here.
This is great.
Like, she brought hosting with her.
This is so good.
It's amazing.
It's
eat
so
the
good.
snacks. I don't know.
I'm eating them. I'm not going to eat them on the mic.
Oh, okay.
We'll be right back.
We're going to try another one. Mark's going to eat snacks. We're going to go through the other categories and come back with a winner. That's coming up next.
We'll be right back.
Hey, when you listen to podcasts, it really just comes down to whether or not you like the sound of everyone's voices. My voice is one of the sounds you'll hear on the podcast Dr. Game Show, and this is the voice of co-host and fearless leader Joe Firestone.
This is a podcast where we play games submitted by listeners, and we play them with callers over Zoom we've never spoken to in our lives. So that is basically the concept of the show. Pretty chill.
So take it or leave it, bucko. And here's what some of the listeners have to say.
It's funny, wholesome, and it never fails to make me smile.
I just started listening and I'm already binging it. I haven't laughed this hard in ages. I wish I discovered it sooner.
You can find Dr. Game Show on MaximumFun.org.
The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
Diablo 4.
Final Fantasy 16.
Street Fighter 6.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Starfield.
Spider-Man 2.
Master Detective Archives Raincoat for Nintendo Switch? No? Is that just me?
It's a huge time for video games.
You need somebody to tell you what's good, what's not so good, and what's amazing.
I'm Jason Schreier.
I'm Maddie Myers.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton. We're the hosts of Triple Click, a video game podcast for anyone who likes games.
Find us at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Bye.
Before we jump into the second half, I'm going to read something from a screenshot that Becky sent me this week. Ginger was once used as a suppository to make a horse stick its tail up.
I gotta go.
If you had an old horse that you wanted to sell, you would insert a ginger into the horse's behind so that it would cock its tail up and look perky and healthy. Looking perky and healthy was referred to as a cocktail. Since alcoholic beverages can also provide a boost, guess what? That's where we get the name. How? Do you see this piece of ginger?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to need you to close your eyes.
They're closed?
Oh, I can't do this. We've done too many episodes.
Well, then why am I bending over your table?
Why did you tell me to bring the ginger?
Boy, what a waste.
Oh, she just sent the meme. She didn't even send the ginger.
Yeah. By the way, just a tip for you if you want to sell a horse, put peanut butter on its lips and then have a friend pretend like it can talk.
Yeah. I'll take the Mr. Ed horse for $1 billion, please.
Yeah. They won't even care what the tail is doing. The tail could fall off mid-sentence.
Yeah.
And they will still buy that horse.
I like this one whose butt smells like ginger. Shut up. We're getting the talking one. Hal, what do you have in front of you?
I have my own flight of drinks that Becky brought for me because she knows I am an apple juice aficionado. So I have 3 different apple juices here. I have the fresh pressed, I have the cloudy natural apple juice, and then a cider from Martinelli. So I will sample these as we go. Do you want me to try one right now and then we'll go in?
Sure.
Start with the cider. I'm not usually a cider person. Let's see.
Give us your tasting notes.
I'm getting notes of apple.
Mm-hmm. Welch's grape juice.
Yeah, little Welch's grape juice. And I feel ginger, but like in my stomach.
Oh, it's just working its way up.
Okay, good.
Perky.
Yeah, I really have never felt more alive.
Wow. Look at your cocked tail.
Yeah, my goodness. Yeah, it's good. I like Martinelli's is a very sugary apple juice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then cider is like a more natural. It's got a more natural apple taste, so there's sort of meeting in the middle.
What makes it cider and not apple juice? Is it there's pulp that's...
I was very surprised to see that called cider. Like when I picked up that bottle, I think of that as being apple juice and not cider. Yeah, I think of cider as being cloudy.
I always think of cider a little cloudier, but...
I always think cider is just apple juice at Christmas time.
Fair, yeah.
That's right. It's just apple juice.
It's Christmas apple juice.
With a Santa
cider.
hat on it. All right. Yeah. Now I'll try the one that was squeezed today. This is a very clear... almost a water. So this is like the juice. If you were to take the juice of an apple, but it also feels strained. I feel like you get a more cloudy juice. So let's see. Where did you get this?
That came from my favorite produce people at the farmer's market at the Grove.
It came in one of those square plastic bottles. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. All right. It's very good. Is this Honeycrisp?
I don't know. I should have asked.
It's apple?
Yeah. That's very sweet.
Look at that palate go.
I'm sorry I made so much fun of your palate.
Listen, I told you, I'm going to say this right now. Do I like canned foods? Yes, I love canned foods. But if you give me something, will I be able to pick out all the ingredients in it? I can.
Yeah.
I just like canned food. I like what I like.
I get it.
And I got the tannest apple juice in my hands right now.
Yeah, you do. Get that tan apple juice.
In a Barack Obama shot glass.
That's right.
Look, listen.
You know where you are.
Try this apple juice.
How is the apple juice?
Ooh, a surprise.
This is a fancy French one.
Yeah, This is almost like applesauce. It almost has that, like a liquid applesauce. I actually think the fresh pressed is better.
All right, then.
This is like a nectar almost?
Sort of. What I like in an apple juice is when you want to be able to taste apple in it. Mm-hmm. And the traditional sugary apple juice, you don't really taste it. It's like apple flavored sugar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of sugar already in an apple. I promise you.
Yeah.
So if you juice an apple, you're going to get plenty of that flavor. You don't need to sweeten it any further. And that's what I get from the farmer's market apple juice. You get sort of that just fresh pressed apple juice. So that's what
clarified apple.
Yeah. You don't need to. This has a little something and I couldn't tell you what it is.
I wonder if that would be better over ice.
Might be. Might need a little. Might water it down a little bit. Traditionally, I don't like ice in any drink.
I
will get it because it's that's less drink I get in my cup if you put ice in there.
If I'm doing it at home, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if I'm out and I'm like, if the machine isn't out there and I'm like, do I get free refills on this? Mm-hmm. Nope. All right, I would like light ice, please, or no ice, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should talk about how important ice is to the advent of the cocktail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's enormous. I mean, if the cocktail as we know it now evolves out of the British punch. Mm-hmm. And did you read the thing? I might have sent it to you about Admiral Russell's Christmas punch. Yes. I've made this before. This was a punch they made in a fountain. They made such enormous amounts of it that it was served by a small child in a boat in the fountain with a ladle.
What?
Which is
like the kid was standing in the punch?
Like the kid was riding in a boat in the punch.
In a boat in the punch?
In a boat in the punch with a ladle. And
how do I get this job?
I want this job. I've made that punch. Not to that extent.
What kid did you use?
I just made it in a punch bowl. I didn't make it with...
What kind of boat did you use, though?
I made a schooner.
Good choice. Classy.
Everybody does.
But if it evolves out of that, ice is such an integral element of a cocktail. It ages the cocktail. And when I say ages, I mean it affects the cocktail, the way it smooths out a cocktail. I mean, I think a big part of any stirred drink is how long you stir it. You're not just trying to combine the ingredients. You're trying to slowly melt the ice as you as you lower the temperature of the drink so that you're smoothing out all the rough edges of good Manhattan or something like that.
It's like putting a few drops of water into a good scotch so that it blooms it, right?
Opens it up. Yeah. Exactly. And they couldn't do that until they could move ice around reliably and use ice.
Until Frederick Ice King Tudor figured out a way to ship ice from cold climates to warmer climates. And became a billionaire doing it. Why? Because everybody likes ice in their drinks.
Everybody likes ice in their drinks.
Are you a shake and drink or a stirred drink more?
Oh, I am a stirred drink.
You're
person.
A stirred, yeah.
I mean, I think you water down your drink too much if you shake it, and I think you can bruise the alcohol. I think you can
what now?
Bruise the alcohol.
How? I know you can bruise a piece of fruit, but you would have to drop it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets used idiomatically in this. When we say that, but when they say that, I don't say it, but they say it.
You just did, Becky.
Yes, I just said it. when I've heard other people say it.
You only hear what I want.
It's breaking up the flavors too much. It's watering them down too quickly. It's not, there's a great line having just listened to your Sorkin episode, there's a great line in The West Wing where, Bartlett says something like James Bond was drinking a weak drink. He was drinking a watered down weak drink. You want a good Manhattan, you stir it, you don't shake it. You want a good martini, you stir it, you don't shake it.
Well, that leads us into the next category then. We can talk about the martini. The martini is one of the main cocktails. Its layout paved the way for other true blue classics, according to the mixer. The Negroni is a Manhattan, or is a martini. The Manhattan is a martini. Yeah, it's basically just any drink that is all booze, right? Chilled and all booze.
Yes, and I think this is going to be hard to beat. I mean, for me, I think some derivation of the martini is going to be tough for cultural significance, for balance. It's going to be hard to beat. I mean, and I'm removing my personal favorite from this because right now, like a Mezcal Negroni is my favorite thing to drink.
I just had a Mezcal Negroni.
And it didn't taste like gasoline.
It didn't taste like gasoline. No, it was delightful.
You can put different things in a martini. I've seen an olive in there.
I love a dirty gin martini.
I've seen a pearl onion.
That's a Gibson.
That's a Gibson. Kirk Gibson, the baseball player who had bad knees and hit a home run in the '88 World Series. That's where that comes from. Aren't there other? There's like a chocolate martini, right?
There's espresso martinis.
There's all kinds of specialty martinis.
Gumball. Anybody ever put a gumball in there?
Martini?
What's that called?
Oh, remember the awful days of the Appletini?
That's right.
Delightful. By the way, we forgot something. We jumped right into the martini. We have not tasted. It has been sitting in front of us.
You haven't tasted it. I've been drinking
I have not tasted it yet. I started talking about other things. I was watching Hal drink apple juice. Let's talk about the second cocktail that we have in front of us right now.
Tell us about it.
Gentlemen, I think we should call this one the Asked and Answered.
Oh, that makes me so happy. I'm going to sip this right now.
This is bourbon. This is
that's smoky too.
This is smoke.
This is some Buffalo Trace bourbon. It's
that little sweet.
That's an Amaro.
I knew it was an Amaro something.
It's kind of an Amaro. It's called Punti Mess, and it's kind of like a cross between an Aperitivo and an Amaro, and I love it in cocktails.
So nice.
There's some Saint Germaine elderflower liqueur in here, a little fresh lemon, and then I finished it with a little smoky Islay scotch for just a little smoky hit at the end. So that's what this one is. This is the Asked and Answered.
This is the Asked and Answered. This is,
that was my.
It looks like iced tea.
Did you want to? You mentioned wanting to do the smell test. Did you want to give it a?
Yeah, let me smell it.
It's super aromatic.
It smells like lots of alcohol in a glass.
Talk about a drink that's all alcohol with just a little lemon juice.
Well, that's alcohol. And that's the beauty of it. But it's so complex because it's got all of those different versions. Yes, they're all alcohols, but they're all different liqueurs and aperitivos and
why I love this formula of drink, right? It's like baking or cooking. It's once you understand the formula, then start riffing endlessly. Yeah. And that's so exciting to me. There's always a new way to make this kind of drink. And I like that about it very much. I think that's cool. Like I said, I think this category is hard to beat. I think it's got one other real strong contender, but.
Yeah. I think that, how would you say that you would break down something like a martini? Would you say there is a base spirit, a sweetener, an aromatic, and an acid? Well,
it depends on, I think it depends on the spirit. I think if it's an aged spirit, you need something that is, and usually whatever is sour is also going to add some sweetness to it. Yeah. And the same for bitter. I want bitter and something that adds some tartness and then all of the complexity of that barrel-aged spirit. So anything bourbon or scotch, if you're drinking a Rob Roy, if you're drinking...
So you did just describe a Manhattan, like a perfect Manhattan.
Right. That's and I love that. I think if you're talking about a gin or a vodka-based drink, then that version of a martini, then it's the spirit and then the dry vermouth, which you use in a much lower ratio.
Right. I've seen it. I used to work at a bar where we had it in a spray bottle.
Yeah. I've said, a martini, people have huge variety in preference on that. Mm-hmm. It can either be like a 2-to-1 ratio or a 15-to-1 ratio in terms of the spirit to the dry vermouth. And then I like a flavoring element to that as well. Something that picks up on the aromatics. I really love, and I'm sure there are people who would turn their nose up at it, but I love a dirty gin martini, but I like olives a lot.
I've had a dirty gin martini. I've had a dirty vodka martini several times.
Yeah.
And usually I'll either do a dirty vodka martini. If I'm in a martini mood, I'll do a dirty vodka martini or a gin martini with a lemon twist.
Sure. And I think that's pretty classic. Mm-hmm. I like the complexity you get from sort of like a new Western style gin, which is a little less juniper forward and tastes a little less like pine needles to me. Sort of the old school gins taste a little like a Christmas tree to me, but a more new sort of Western style gin gives you lots of other interesting aromatics and then not too dirty. Like I used to be a filthy martini girl. I am no longer a filthy martini girl. I am a dirty martini girl because I really like the briny saltiness. And I think anytime you add salt, I'm just going to get real nerdy here, guys. I'm sorry. You're stimulating your salivatory glands, salivatory? Did I just make that word up? I might have. We've been drinking. It's fine. Yeah. You're stimulating that, which means you're tasting more. And you're getting all of the cool brininess from the olives. All of those cool things in the gin. And I love that.
The saliva gland thing is why they always say that adding salt to something doesn't make it taste saltier. It makes it taste more like itself.
Exactly. And that's why I brought salty snacks, because I thought that's why we have salty snacks in bars, because you eat salty things. You want to drink more. It's, and everything tastes like more of itself. So that's
All right. We're going to have to come back to the martini. Because there's going to be some contenders in the martini category.
So far, it's the martini and margarita seems like.
Are we going to try to figure
itself
the margarita is the sidecar that comes out of that?
Yes, but that's a finalist. Mm-hmm. We've established that.
Do you want to figure out which martini is going to be our finalist?
Appletini. It's your favorite.
Oh God. Oh.
Because there's a drink I want to put in the finals.
Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, what do you got?
I want to put in the finals simply because of the bonkers history of this drink. And what this drink has done for mixology by being terrible.
Talk about it.
And that is the Cosmo. Can we talk about the Cosmo?
Talk all about it.
Yeah.
Would you call the Cosmo a martini?
I think the Cosmo would like to be called a martini.
That's the thing. It wants to be a martini, but it's not because it's got fruit juice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a sidecar. Mm-hmm. Or no, it's a highball that's pretending to be a martini.
Exactly. Why are you mad?
I'm not mad. I'm fascinated because the Cosmopolitan came out. I think Sex and the City definitely helped.
Sure.
The TV show. And also I don't hate it.
Do.
No, I love a Cosmo.
There's a look on your
face.
But
a Cosmo became such a ubiquitous, it was like people who don't drink fancy drinks would go to bars and order Cosmos. And it would drive bartenders crazy because it's cranberry juice, vodka, lemon
triple
juice,
sec.
and triple sec.
Yeah.
And
what's wrong with that? Why would
it did?
It's essentially a sidecar.
It's a sidecar served in a martini glass, and the booze snobs got so mad at everyone ordering Cosmos in the late 90s that all through the 2000s, mixology has boomed almost as a middle finger to the existence of the Cosmo.
It's sort of the hipster response to the existence of the Cosmo.
So funny to me that people are drinking old fashions now just because Carrie Bradshaw had a Cosmo and made it famous.
But why do you hate it?
I love it, Hal.
Sounds like you hate it.
I will go to a bar and order a Cosmo right now, unapologetically.
Just to tick people off?
No, to enjoy a drink.
I don't like all this gatekeeping I'm hearing from these alcohol
It's not gatekeeping. That's the thing. Here's the thing. Look, listen.
Sorry.
You live in a world that has a lot of gatekeepers. Come to the world where the Cosmopolitan just goes through and opens up gates.
But I mean,
drinking.
The people who are like, no, there's no egg in that. Like, what? I don't think I could drink that through a horse's rib and really enjoy it.
The only thing you're supposed to drink through a horse is ginger, and you know how to get to it.
Yeah, they're just ginger fountains.
My brother is a mixologist and a really great bartender. And my brother Russ, all the time says, drink what you like. Like, drink what you like. Yeah. I am not going to tell anybody they can't have a Cosmo. It's not going to be what I order, but it's not what I'm looking for in a drink either.
No, but it's fun. A Cosmo is that same thing as it's the same accessibility issue.
Mm-hmm. It lets you hold it in a cool glass.
It's a highball in a cool glass.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And if you want to hold a martini glass, but not have an actual martini, go nuts, man. You're at a bar. Have fun. That's the whole point.
Right. There's no reason to keep people from what they want to drink.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question. I think part of this is going to be cultural relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The Cosmo would not be as popular as it became without Sex in the City. Is that something we agree with? That really helped to create a movement out of it?
Yeah.
I wonder if it would have had a moment through something else. It's actually originally a prohibition drink. And it was a prohibition drink. It was a prohibition drink called the Daisy. And when we talk about prohibition drinks, and the cocktail culture that came out of prohibition, it's because anybody who was bootlegging and bringing in booze to drink in speakeasies wasn't terribly concerned with the quality. And there was a lot of bathtub gin going on.
Right.
So all of a sudden people were like, well, we have to make this palatable somehow. How about this fruit juice and this sugar and these bitters? And let's start adding things to this so that we don't taste the alcohol at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of prohibition originated cocktails are there so that you don't taste the alcohol. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Daisy, which becomes the Cosmo, is, like you said, so accessible. It's people who are like, oh, I can't taste the alcohol at all, as opposed to someone who's drinking a martini in the same glass, holding it in the same way. He's like, I like the expression of this spirit and the way it works with this, or the Manhattan saying, I like the way I can taste the bourbon or the rye and the way it's been aged and the flavor notes I'm getting from that. This is someone who's saying, I want to have a drink, but I don't want to know I'm having a drink.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get snobby about it. Again, you do you. Drink what you want to drink. But for me, I like spirits enough to not want to do that.
Right.
And that's not meant to sound snobby or shitty, but I forget. Are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
No, we'll bleep it.
All right. Thanks. Sorry, Ken. I mean, not to sound snobby, but it's just what you're looking for in a drink. I think the mojito had a similar renaissance.
Right.
Yeah.
Lots of mint, lots of lime, lots of sugar.
It's everything that makes you not think you're drinking.
Bartenders hated it because it takes forever to make.
Yeah, it's like a Long Island iced tea where you're like, just give me a bunch of booze and hide that it's booze.
Exactly. So, I want to get wasted and not know. And that's never what I want.
That's
we all stopped drinking to get wasted a long time ago.
Yeah. My question is, so if certainly there are a lot of drinks that existed, they might not have had a huge cultural moment. I don't think the Cosmo would have had a huge cultural moment without Sex in the City. That undeniably.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Yeah.
Do you think the martini would have had obviously it would still be around. Do you think James Bond has made it sort of, I know it existed beforehand. You are raising your hand.
Well, I'm excited to talk about how the martini as we know it in James Bond, despite my West Wing reference, because I will make West Wing references all day long.
It's the greatest.
It's the best.
It's the second best Sorkin thing.
If you say so. I'm so sorry, people of the world. Sure, something that went, 4 seasons with Aaron Sorkin at the helm is not as good as something that was 2 hours long, but that's okay.
We got the text.
I refrained, gentlemen. But in the original Ian Fleming novel, when he first orders a drink, he doesn't order the martini as we think of it.
Really?
He orders what becomes, he names by the end of that book. It's
the Vesper.
The Vesper, right?
After
named
his
Vesper Lind.
Yeah. Vesper Lind.
But that's not the same drink. That has a Lilet in it and I forget exactly what's in that drink. Forgive me. But that has a Lilet in it that the Lilet company doesn't even make anymore. And
that's cool.
He's like, and in the Ian Fleming, he says, this is my own invention. I came up with this. Make this for me. So it's not the first thing he orders. And then I think James Bond is very much responsible for the martini having some of the cachet that it does.
Right.
But that was the 60s.
So is Don Draper.
Yeah. Don Draper is drinking martinis in the 60s, but Don Draper lives in a world where Dr. No has already come out.
Right, exactly.
He's drinking it because of James Bond.
Yeah.
But he's also living in a world where there's a cocktail culture. I mean, there's a lot to fault the 50s and 60s for, but cocktail parties where people crafted cocktails and had small bites and sat around and talked to each other.
We're literally
and had music.
I
love it so much.
We just don't have music on because we're recording a podcast.
Fair enough.
Well, let's get to the music. We're coming in for a landing.
We'll come in for a landing. I want to jump to something that you mentioned that I think it will lead us to yet another one of these categories. It will actually lead us to two of these categories if we're looking historically. And that is the old-fashioned and the daiquiri. The old-fashioned being, so after you mentioned prohibition and then making drinks that would have fruit juice and all these other things added to them. But a cocktail in the classic sense was 4 ingredients. It was a spirit, it was water, it was a sweetener, and what was the fourth? Bitters. It was those 4 things. And it was at a time when people were making drinks that had all different fruit juices and crazy things in them. Somebody would go into a bar and say, just give me a drink the old-fashioned way. Meaning they would have a cocktail the old-fashioned way, which is now an old-fashioned, which is a spirit, a sweetener, water, and bitters. So that gives us the old-fashioned. Then branching off from that in the 1930s, and I know you can talk about this. I'm so excited to hear your stories about this. We're going to knock out 2 categories right now with the daiquiri and other tropical drinks and fruit, rum-based, sugar-based spirits, creating these super fruity drinks, going the opposite direction of the old-fashioned with people like Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic. Tell us about Don the Beachcomber and Trader Vic. These guys were duking it out in the 1930s over the tiki bar movement.
They were. They both, Victor Bergeron started a bar called Hinky Dinks that he later named Trader Vic's.
Yeah, way better name because Hinky Dinks sounds like gymboree.
No good.
Like kids in the mall go to Hinky Dinks while the parents are shopping.
That's right.
And Don Beach actually has this really long name that's like he's 4 names long and I forget exactly what his name is.
I don't even think Don is actually part of it.
No, it's not.
It's not. His name isn't even Don.
Yeah. These guys take the drinks that we get sort of after World War I and the end of Prohibition and the drinks that are kind of coming out of an amalgamation of things that are vaguely Polynesian.
Yeah.
And talk about adding as much fruit juice and interesting things to a cocktail as you can. Don Beach at Beachcombers comes up with the zombie, which has between 12 and 18 ingredients.
Too many.
And the 19th ingredient is problematic colonialism.
Oh, so much. So much. And they were so worried about bartenders taking these recipes and taking them other places that they made them proprietary by only having certain people in the bar knowing how to make certain elements.
Really?
So that like
the 11 herbs and spices?
Yes. So there might be Don's number 1 syrup or Don's number 2 syrup and the barbacks know how to make that. And then the bartenders know how to take that and add that to spirits and fruit juice. And they made sure that like nobody had the whole thing.
Sure.
Because they're so worried about people taking this idea. There's also the argument that
that's so cool.
Right. That through the 50s and 60s, this tiki culture feels escapist. It feels, I mean, as people are watching atrocities they've never seen before, you walk into a tiki bar and you're on vacation for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you're drinking something that feels exotic and outside of your daily life. You know, you walk into a bar and you order a martini and you're still you having it, but you walk in somewhere and you order the zombie or the Mai Tai, which both Trader Vic and Don Beach claimed responsibility for.
I like that Don the Beachcomber's name has just been shortened
Don
to
Beach.
Don
I'm
Beach.
sorry. Or maybe I'm just too in now.
So Don Beach.
Donnie Beach
comes up with this drink, right? Don Beach. He made up the Mai Tai, which is the most Chicago accent-friendly drink out of all of these.
Mai Tai.
That's pretty good. That's actually, I think it is pretty understood that he lied, that he came up with a zombie, but Victor Bergeron is the guy who came up with
Don Beach.
Also, mission not accomplished because I can go to any bar and order a zombie and get one.
That's fair. Yeah.
Which one is the giant kiddie pool they bring you that's blue with all the stuff?
That's a scorpion bowl.
Or an Adios MFer, right?
What is that?
An Adios MFer is a big blue, like punch bowl.
Windshield wiper fluid.
It's just every, it's like blue Curacao the blue Curacao is the ink that they put in the rivers of America at Disneyland. It's the thing that covers up everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's just, let's cover it all up.
That's not going to win.
It's the LA River.
It's the LA River.
That's one of them. That's Adios MFR is also LA River.
Is it called an L? Oh my gosh. An Adios MFR also called an LA River.
Well, there you go.
Ooh. I mean, as tiki culture, it's fascinating. I've got a good friend, my friend Mark Boschko, who I called earlier and was like, just give me everything you got on tiki, because he has made drinks for me that I'm not a rum person. I'm just not, unless Mark puts a drink in front of me. And then they are balanced and complex and interesting. And I think, I could never drink more than one of these. And then I'm on my third drink he's made me because they're so good. He makes something called 3 dots and a dash, which was like a World War II victory sign.
Right.
And they're so good. They are
I love that he's doing
complex.
Old school World War II drink.
John and I went away for the weekend with Mark and his girlfriend Jill. And I mean, you think I come prepared for things? This man brought his own ice crusher. Like he was leaving.
You brought your own ice.
Yeah, it's fair. But he was leaving nothing to chance.
Yeah.
Do we need to write letters for him and come read them to him? Because that feels
I'm ready.
That feels like there's a step. There's like functioning, and then there's succeeding.
It's like girl drink drunk
like we're like at a level of. That's like a level of, well, they might not have an ice crusher there, and I know for sure something that's about to happen.
That should be right.
Yeah.
His drinks are perfect. They are perfect every time. And it's an attention to detail. It's a production value that I have a lot of respect for.
So then we have all the categories.
We have all the categories.
Okay.
The only one that we really haven't talked about that I want to mention is, because this category is it's sort of the utility catch-all category, and that's a whiskey highball. Okay. Whiskey highball being the original, which is whiskey, club soda, or whiskey seltzer and lemon wedge. Yeah. But the variations on that are, it feels like that's so many of the drinks that I would order in a bar, which is just a spirit, a soda, and a garnish.
Yeah.
That's a rum and coke. That's a screwdriver minus the bubbles, but
scotch and soda.
Scotch and soda.
So it's so many drinks are highballs that I don't know which. Is there a version of that we take through to the finals simply for its pure utility, or is utility not a thing we're looking for in the best cocktail?
I mean, I think it loses on cultural significance.
Because it's so easy.
Like, what do you take? Like a gin and tonic?
Gin and tonic, rum and coke. Like, none of those feel as important as the other ones.
It feels like what you order before you know what you really want to order.
Yeah.
It feels like what you order to be safe. Like if I go to a wedding and I go look at the bar and I go, yeah, give me a gin and tonic.
We look at the bartender and he looks like that guy that works at Chuck E. Cheese on The Simpsons.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Hey, what kind of drink would you like? Just give me a rum and coke.
Here's the thing I think you're not going to screw up.
Yeah.
Which makes me sound, I don't know, like a terrible person, but it just seems like the easy walk around. No one's going to get
that guy's not going to make a penicillin.
No.
I do love a penicillin.
That is my husband's favorite cocktail.
It's so fun.
So good.
Talk about a good one with a nice little smoky scotch
the Islay float on the top. Man, we drank a bunch of those in Edinburgh this summer. That was so good.
But yeah, I don't think a whiskey highball is going to wind up being there because of that utilitarian nature of it.
I think
if we're talking about a utilitarian cocktail, we want a fun one, and we've already got that, which is the margarita. I would argue that what we're looking at right now as our grand finalists in this,
margarita.
As much as I love the Cosmo and how much it accidentally did for mixology.
Not going to win.
It's not going to win.
Not going to win.
I think it's going to be either the margarita or our perfect version of a martini.
Can I throw one more in?
Please.
I think you got to talk about an old fashioned.
We did. We gave short shrift to the old fashioned.
I think we did. I mean, when I asked my brother and I said, so like, I'm going on this podcast. You tell me, answer this question for me. What's the best cocktail? Right. And he didn't hesitate before he said an old fashioned. And when I think about it, you talked about you can have a margarita on a beach. Mm-hmm. You can't really have a margarita in a steakhouse. And you can have a Manhattan in a steakhouse. You can't really have a Manhattan on a beach, but I could have both of the, I could have an old fashioned either place.
And it is the OG version of a cocktail.
Right. It takes the spirit. It expresses the spirit. You get all of the coolness of the people who have gone into the craft of making the spirit, who have aged it in the wood that it's been aged in, the amount of time it's been aged, the mix of the grain that's made the spirit. and then they just season it. Like an old fashioned is really
like
just
orange bitters, or like you had cardamom bitters in our gin drink.
Right. It's like adding salt to a recipe. You are just seasoning the spirit. And there's something really cool and pure about that. And I don't know. It's not my favorite. I love an old fashioned. It's not my favorite, but it's hard not to make at least putting it into the conversation that it's the best.
I'd say the argument you're making, especially because it's separated from you thinking it's your favorite, makes it the winner.
It is. It's tough.
I know you want to debate this for a half an hour, but I think she hit upon something there.
I think it is too.
It is back to basics. It is something that you can have anywhere. Both the martini and the margarita have a place where they fit very well and a place where they do not fit at all. So something that I know it's maybe not as accessible. The margarita is like you can buy a mix and you toss one thing into it, put it in, they have a machine to make it, but like.
Which I think is a vote against it.
It's a vote against. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's so available everywhere. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily make it the best.
That's
Martini's
true.
Got like a classy kind of like if a drink was a tuxedo or an evening gown kind of thing to it, which is great and it has its place, but it doesn't fit everywhere. An old fashioned, just by the definition of what it is, it's very versatile.
Yeah.
Like it can have different bases. There is a simplicity to it.
A history to it.
There's a history to it.
Yeah.
And it works just about anywhere. So I think that makes it the best cocktail.
I think that's a good, can you describe for me the perfect old fashioned?
Sure.
Or the perfect classic old fashioned. I know you could be like, well, there are cardamom bitters. No. Give me the best classic old fashioned.
So the only thing I'm going to say is that I prefer an old fashioned made with a simple syrup of some nature rather than the sugar cube. You can make the old fashioned where you take the sugar cube and you douse it in bitters and then you sort of crush that and then pour the spirit on top of it. For me, I'd rather have something that just emulsifies isn't the word I want.
It's already done.
But
bartenders love you, by the way.
And then, right.
Because they have a little squirt bottle of simple syrup and it's way easier.
Right.
Simple syrup, I like, if I'm at home, I might use maple syrup because I think that's works really nicely with a good bourbon or rye. And then you add bitters and a small amount of sweetener to taste. And then you take a piece of orange zest, you twist it to express the oils, maybe run it around the rim of the glass, drop it in, and then pour your spirit on top of it, stir that and add an ice cube. And that's a drink. I can't think of anywhere it wouldn't be appropriate to order that drink.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask you this if I'm doing it wrong? Because when I have an old fashioned, my favorite version of an old fashioned is instead of a sugar cube, and I know that I'm probably doing this wrong.
There is no wrong.
I like it. Instead of a sugar cube, I like a Luxardo cherry.
Oh, I love a Luxardo cherry.
So I like a Luxardo and the orange zest.
I'll garnish it. I just don't want the fruit muddled. I don't want to muddle
drop it in whole.
Yeah, drop it in whole. I'm sorry. I should have said that. Yeah, I absolutely, in my Manhattan and in my old fashioned, I want a Luxardo cherry in there too.
It's funny that this is definitely emerging. It's funny. I totally breezed right over it, but it's emerging as the victor. Ask me, when I think to myself, if my choices are beer or wine or a cocktail, if my choice is cocktail on a night, ask me what cocktail 9 times out of 10 I order.
What cocktail would you order 9 times out of 10?
A Manhattan. I mean, nope. I said the wrong word. Nope. Ask me again.
What cocktail would you order 9 times out of 10?
An old fashioned.
People of the world, I want us all to break into a medical school together. We're going to grab a femur off one of the cadavers and we're going to take an old fashioned and pour it right down your gullet. If you don't drink, join me over at the kiddie table and I will tell you which apple juice to have. But the old fashioned, it goes anywhere. And you just saw a beautiful illustration of 2 people who were changing just one of the elements to suit it to themselves, but it still is an old fashioned. It doesn't become a different name. It's an old fashioned. And you can change those, being able to change those individual ingredients is a big vote in its favor. And that is why it is the best cocktail. We got there, asked and answered. Becky Ward.
This
what
was
a delight.
So fun,
guys, thank you so much.
Thank you for
so great.
All of these drinks, both for me and for all of you. We are going to put the recipes for the Asked and Answered and the Plume. They will be available as part of the notes for this episode, so you can make it yourself. And is there anything you would like to plug? Anything you would like people to know about? Please put it out there.
Well, if you're in Los Angeles and you think you have a child who wants to take lessons, or you do, come see us at the South Pasadena Arts and Music Academy, because we're doing some really special things out there. And I wake up every morning going, oh my gosh, I have a music school, and feel like pinching myself. I know John does too, because it's just the best thing. We also have a very cool album coming out in the not too distant future. I am a classical orchestral musician. I'm a classical orchestral violinist. That is what I do. And, some scoring for the Thrilling Adventure Hour, which has always been one of my very favorite things in the world. And being here is a delight. But in a real twist for me, John and I have been working with Allie Gertz on this incredible 9 Inch Nails cover album. And it is 9 Inch Nails recast through a feminist lens in ways that are important to my soul right now. And John and I have had the incredible privilege of working with Allie in this amazing project and doing all of the string performances and arrangements for it. So it's called Peeled Back, and it's coming soon. And I kind of think it's going to blow everybody's mind. So I'm so in love with this project. So keep your eyes out for Peeled Back by Allie Gertz.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, thank you for being here. That album I'm so excited about. I'm excited for this episode to drop. I'm excited to eat more of these Gougères. Oh, man. Amazing. This topic is closed, but there are many more topics to discuss. So please reach out to us via email at wegotThisPodcast@gmail.com, or
go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/wegotThisPodcast. Share your favorite cocktails, recipes, the love of drink. And if you have a favorite apple juice, drop it in there too, and I will give it a thumbs up, but only if I like it. You can also find us on TikTok at We Got This Podcast and on Instagram at We Got This Show. Thank you to producer Ken Plume. You can support him not only by drinking the Plume, but by going to patreon.com/Ken Plume. Thank you to researcher Kate McManus, graphic designer Uri Kelman, and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And thanks, of course, to our musicians, Becky's husband, Jonathan Dinerstein, and Mike Furman for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, the people of the world, without whom we would not have tasted the Plume and the Asked and Answered and these Gougères and these. We didn't even mention the maple curry cashews that you made. Y'all, thanks for letting us have Becky over to do this. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
To you, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. And don't worry, everybody. We got this.
We got this.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows supported
directly
by you.